So let's look at the front. Since before you and I were born, the academic left has known that a violent revolution brought on by socialists would be a massive effort. The nation's really big and spread out, and they're also fully aware of the Second Amendment. That is why when we research movements like the Weather Underground and the Students for a Democratic Society, we see that they planned for counter-revolution. Now, I use the word planned loosely. There's also an understanding that this stuff can be boring. Not to mention, and I hate to say it, too high-minded for the very people the academic left needs to create their numbers. Do you really think they can get the people who show up to this stuff to read Trotsky? This is where two phrases come into play: bread and circus and the useful idiots. The first being the way organizers will delight and entertain. The second is the use of people who have the characteristics to get others on board with a cause without fully understanding the whole nature of the cause, and that includes the media. So what we see is vibrant imagery of people chanting and painting street murals and the like. This goes all the way back to the folk music clubs in New York City in the 1950s with its radical left-wing politics, and exploded with Woodstock in the late 1960s. The in-the-know left long ago understood the ease of mixing socialism with low art, the sort of false identification with the downtrodden. Think Bruce Springsteen. So when we see the circus, don't be surprised when the media, knowing this is easily digested and also being useful idiots, focus on the superficial.
Thank you, Lord! Thank you, Lord! Thank you, Lord!
Why are you doing this? Why?
Earthquake on the way.
What do you mean?
Earthquake. The rain was ravaged Seattle.
Why are you naked?
Gotta tell people.
About what?
You like living in
Earthquake.
Chaz?
Huh?
You like living in Chaz?
Chaz.
Yeah.
Chaz World.
Wait, slow down, slow down. Slow down, slow down. Why are you naked?
There's an earthquake on the way.
Doesn't that remind you of a scene at a Forrest Gump? Right now, Chaz Chop, or whatever you want to call it, has a mixture of music festival meets a teach-in. And during the day, it looks like a lot of fun. But what the night brings is a totally different animal. The Seattle Times has been regularly updating us with headlines like this: poets and artists perform on Capitol Hill, sharing experiences and thoughts. Quote, protesters are still sitting at the corner of 12th Avenue and Pine Street in the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, cheering and staying silent at times as Black poets and artists voice the love, pain, and fear they continue to feel. Then there's this. This is a story of reparations. Areas of Cal Anderson transformed into community gardens. Quote, in a grassy area of Cal Anderson Park, circles the city mowed to encourage social distancing among visitors have now become community gardens. Tomatoes, herbs, and lavender sprout from newly laid soil. The plant starts, like so much else in the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, were donated to the new communal effort. Oh, how cute! Sit-ins and gardening. Look, you don't have to actually be a farmer or a grocery logistics professional to understand they are not going to be able to grow enough food to feed the crowd if they even ever get to harvest what they attempted to plant. To get the stuff they need, there's the list, there it is, it's going to take trade. And that's called capitalism. So what's actually behind this supposed kumbaya environment? Well, of course, talk of revolution.
Has anybody here ever heard of the French Revolution before? That is another revolution because people started putting property over lives. They started putting money over people. Does anybody here know what happened to the people who did not get on board with the French Revolution? Let's say it louder. Say it louder. It's the message we need to send. We are serious.
You heard that, right? Chopped? Where do you think the phrase off with their heads comes from? Now, back to what's behind this. The academic left knows darn well what happens after such a revolution, and it's repeated itself in Russia, Cambodia, and Cuba. In France, it was called the Reign of Terror. And here it is from the Encyclopedia Britannica. Quote, "The revolutionary government decided to make terror the order of the day, the September 5th decree, and to take harsh measures against those suspected of being enemies of the revolution, nobles, priests, and hoarders. In Paris, a wave of executions followed. In the provinces, representatives on mission and surveillance committees instituted local terrors. The terror had an economic side embodied in the maximum, a price control measure demanded by the lower classes of Paris, and a religious side that was embodied in the program of de-Christianization pursued by followers of Jacques Robert. So the promise of a kinder, softer government is a lie, and the left knows it. So the Chaz Chop organizers want you to believe if you put them in charge, there'll be no police and laws made by the community, and everybody will be happy and taken care of. There'll be peace and love and peace. So here's the argument. What is taking place in Seattle has nothing to do with racism or George Floyd for that matter, and everything to do with revolutionary left-wing politics. Does anyone really think the government under these people won't use force? This no-cop zone doesn't really mean no rules. And funny, on their list of demands is the elimination of the U.S. border, yet they set up barricades, also known as a border wall. They ran off the Seattle Police Department, then established security teams who have no training but enforce the will of the warlord and guard the wall. Everything is free. For how long? Those guards aren't going to feed many people, and communists are kinder and gentler, they say. Well, wait a second. How do you think property is seized? Taxes collected, dissenters dealt with. I can assure you it's not hugs and kisses. Show me one nation in history that's lived through a violent leftist revolution where the individual came out with more rights and a more restrained government. These people in the streets that think they're woke and thus intelligent are being used as dupes. The linking of race to socialism is ridiculous. Many African nations tried Marxism and it cost millions of lives. In other words, average black people didn't do so well. Same is true for the average Asian and Latino in respective nations. Cuba and Venezuela are hellholes. Mao and Pol Pot that is, destroyed millions of lives. The left's heroes, Lenin, Stalin, Castro, and Che, were monsters. Everything the left touches turns to you-know-what, except for those at the top of their new pyramid. Like Occupy, sooner or later, this will end, but it will come back, and as it has each time, will come back stronger. If it isn't stopped, we'll all be chopped.